Well, looky here, what do we have? If you are a frequent watcher of this channel, you may be familiar with this particular set of speakers, but there's a twist. They are doppelgangers. I just picked up this set, which just so happens to correspond perfectly with the existing set of EVM-12Ls from Electro-Voice that I had previously. So if you have not checked out those videos, then I'll link them in the description. But I put both of these speakers in a 1x12 cabinet, well, a combo amp really, and kind of tested them against a bunch of other speakers. That was a really fun video to make, and I really love these speakers. They've been living in my EVH 2x12 cabinet for the most part, but I just swapped them out, and now we have four. So the idea is that I'm going to put these in this 4x12. So we're gonna see what four of these bad boys sound like. So what do we have? This is Electro-Voice EVM-12L. And I believe both of these are the Series II, which you can see on this guy here. It says Series II. But this one did not have the cover, which doesn't affect the sound in any way, shape, or form, but it definitely makes it look cooler and more badass. So these are the ones that I just picked up. They are the 12L variant, and this set has a 12L. This is a 12L. This is identical to this one, but this coverless speaker is actually the 12S. So the EVM-12S. And I've done a bunch of research trying to figure out exactly what the difference is between the L, the S. I think there's a few different letters as well. And from what I can tell is that the L stands for long and the S stands for short. And that's in reference to the response. And I'm not exactly sure. That kind of sounds a little bogus maybe, but either way, these speakers are not terribly different from one another. And I couldn't tell a difference when I had them side by side. So the 12S versus 12L, for all intents and purposes, is the same speaker to my ears. So yes, it is kind of the odd man out here, but we're gonna count it as the same. And just, you know, we got a 4x12 cab here. Let's go ahead and get a baseline and see what we've got before installing these four giant 28-pound speakers. All right, so what is this 4x12 cab that we're going to be using today? It is the Marshall MF280. And MF stands for Mode 4, which was a series of amplifiers and cabinets that Marshall came out with in the kind of mid-2000s, 05, 06, 07. And it was meant to be an oversized cabinet to compete against the Mesa Boogies, the Randalls, the other kind of metal cabinets that expanded in size since 95 to 2005 and produce kind of low, chuggy, genty sounds. So that's kind of the sound of the music in the mid-early 2000s, and Marshall tries to respond with this Mode 4 amplifier, which was a tube amplifier. I believe it did have some sort of solid state technology as well, but it did have tube power, and you know, it wasn't a very popular amp. You can find the MF, the Mode 4 amps, for sale for like 250 bucks these days. They're not too common as well, so maybe there's a little rarity in there nowadays, but not too long ago you could pick these amps up for really just a song. Same with the cabinets. And the cabinets are really where this series shines, because they developed this amp platform. The Mode 4 has four different amps built into one basically, and you can choose between any number of those sounds. And the cabinet was meant to be really responsive, really loud, big, and just boisterous, a huge MFer of a cabinet. And they actually had a bigger size, not a physical size, but a bigger watt RMS that they sold. This is the 280. I believe it's the MF400. I could be wrong, but there's some ridiculously high wattage that is just designed for just massive amps. And this one has 280 watts. Where does that number come from? Well, we have four Celestion V30 speakers. They're branded Marshall. We'll take a look at them in a second here, but they're not your typical V30, which is usually a 60-watt speaker. These ones are 70. So they're 70 watts, 70 times 4 is 280, hence the name MF280. This cabinet is 100% birch plywood. Not exactly sure how many plies, but it's thick. I've taken these speakers out and it is thick. This is really Marshall's answer to Genty metal. And you know, I don't play that kind of music very much, but we're gonna play it with a Stratocaster for the single coil tones. And then I've got my Flying V here for the humbucker tones. So we'll get a bass line with the V30s, the Marshall-branded V30s, and then we'll go ahead and swap out these speakers and see what these just chunky-ass EVM speakers will be in here. And if we do a little bit of math here, these EVM-12Ls are actually rated for 200 watts. So really this becomes an MF800 with this speaker complement, the EVM-12L. So take that for what it's worth. Obviously, I'm not going to put 800 watts through this. I don't have an amp capable of that, but I do have a Marshall 1987X Plexi head, which is a 50-watt Marshall head, and it's really just a classic rocker style of amplifier. Pure tube, powered, rectified, and preamped, and just a Goliath of a 50-watt amp. So that's the rig that we're going to be going with today. Let's get a baseline tone with these V30s. So the way I'm miking this cabinet today is I have one SM58 right here on the bottom left. I have one Sennheiser E906, both dynamic microphones. This one's on the upper left speaker. And then if I pull out, you can see that I do have a condenser microphone, the Audio-Technica AT43 SE, capturing kind of just all four speakers pointed at it. I put this right in the middle, just a few feet away, and hopefully this microphone configuration can capture the sound well, and we'll replicate it when we get these new speakers in here as well. So up first, I have my 1999 Strat Deluxe. This is a Fender USA product, and I'll link the video specifically outlining this guitar in the description. But we're going to play this guitar for single coil tones with a little clean, a little dirty, and then we'll hear it in the humbucker, and then quickly try to move on and hear what these EVM speakers sound like. These V30s are really great sounding. That's why I love this cabinet. I picked it up for, I want to say 250 bucks, and it really, really outshines like the 1960 cabs, some of the other classic Marshall cabs. But anyway, that's our single coil clean sound. Let's hear a little dirt, and then we'll get the humbuckers involved. So my go-to dirt pedal these days has been the JHS Nauticlon. And I unboxed it, put it together a couple months ago, and it's really just kind of taken over as far as what I want to play through when I want some crunch. So here is the JHS Nauticlon, just right in line in the signal, nothing else has changed. I love that dirty sound. It makes you want to play a little sloppier just to kind of swish around in it. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but the Strat is kind of a sloppy guitar for me, but that's what I like about it. It's got a little slop in it, and you can push it around, pull it around, and it's not as rigid as some other guitars. But that's what we've got for single coil. Let's go ahead and hear what we've got with the guitar to my right, which is a Gibson Flying V. Okay, so we are in the bridge pickup for this humbucker guitar. This is a 2016 Gibson Flying V, and this is the Pro T version, one of my kind of sleeper variants that I really liked because it has binding on the neck, and it's got the zebra uncovered pickups and binding on the body, so it's kind of like a Flying V Custom, but not quite. It does have the rosewood fretboard and dot inlays, but it's a premium feeling guitar at a non-premium price in their kind of range. This was a lower tiered Flying V as far as I know, but it really looks the part. It's got coil switches, so that's kind of cool. Not on this tone knob, but the two pickups can go into a split, or at least where they take out some of the windings. But let's just go full humbucker. Here it is, the Flying V through the same exact rig as before. So that's clean. Let's kick on the Nauticlon one more time. I can get caught up playing this thing all day. I just love this cabinet with this guitar as well. So let's go ahead and swap out these speakers, see if it makes an appreciable difference. I expect that it's going to clean things up a bit and maybe have a higher headroom. And when you do engage the crunch pedal, I feel like it's going to be a little cleaner. That's my best assessment, because these EVM-12Ls are known for being very flat as far as their nominal response. They don't add any peaks like the V30, which adds kind of a higher spike in the hertz, and some other speakers drop that out and drop the curve. These ones are pretty flat, and that's kind of what they're known for, producing really authentic, actual sounds of an amplifier, and you don't get any garbage in between. So let's go ahead and see what they sound like. All right, if you've ever wondered what's inside of one of these Marshall Mode 4 cabinets, the 280 version looks like this. And I said that they were Marshall-branded speakers. They are, but the branding has all fallen off. So you can see here that we have all of our speaker backings, our stickers, right here, and they look like this. Marshall Vintage 30MF 12 G12 70 watts. There you go. And 16 ohm speakers. These are Celestion speakers. One thing you will note is that this is kind of the cheaper stamped style of speaker, and I don't know if that makes a huge difference, but either way, they were made in England. Let's see if we can get a close-up of this here. can see the Ipswich, England sticker right there. So they're honest to God V30s, just slightly different voiced for this cabinet. Let's go ahead and swap them out. Well, I was able to get 2 of these giant speakers in here, but 2 of the other ones, and not the same pair. I have one from my previous pair, and this is one of the new ones that I just picked up. But 1 and 1 from either batch had a pretty thick material around the edge of the cone, and it made it so big that the machine screws that affix these speakers would not work. They just would not catch the threads on the little grommets inside. So instead of calling this a loss, I installed the 2 that I was able, and the only other 8 ohm speakers that I have are these Sun Transducer 128G SP vintage speakers. These are from 1978, and they're actually very nice speakers, not on the caliber of these EVM-12Ls, but you know, they're an actual good loudspeaker meant for this application. So we're going to put the microphones right on these speakers, on the EVMs, and we'll just have these other 2 kind of holding space, not really coloring the sound too much, hopefully, but that's kind of the update. I really wish that I could have gotten all 4 of them in there, but I'll show you exactly why. So this is one of the screws that hold these speakers on, and if I go ahead and put it in the hole, you can see there's not very much of the screw still holding through on here. So when you add this surround here, this fortification to the cone, it can help create a better seal with whatever cabinet you're using. But in this case, it makes the speaker rim so deep that these threads wouldn't even catch the grommets inside of that 9mm plywood. So that's kind of the downside to this speaker. It's got a really deep rim, and if you do put one of those protective little things around the rim, then very likely you will have some problem utilizing machine screws in these cabinets that take advantage of machine screws. So keep that in mind, and I'm not too inclined to remove this layer here. It's pretty solid and it's glued on, I think, from the factory, but either way, I would be more inclined to get longer screws. I just don't have the ability to run out and get them right now. So that's what we're dealing with. Sorry about that, but hopefully the rest of the video can make sense with just these 2 speakers. All right, so that's a bit of a bummer that we can't get all 4 of these EVM-12 blank speakers in here, but I did get the 2 in, and I've been playing it just for a second here to make sure that everything is wired up properly and works, and it does, and it sounds like this. So, you know, not very different from my plugged ears here. We'll have to consult the take. I can tell that the waveform is actually smaller, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. I would have expected this to be slightly louder, if anything, but the way that I have this mic'd up, again, you may notice that the X pattern, the cross pattern, is changed because I have the EVMs up here and down there, bottom left, upper right, and the Sun speakers are in the opposing locations. So I wanted to capture both of those on speaker, right on the cone with these dynamic microphones, and then I was hoping that this condenser microphone would just give a good overall sound kind of in the room. But it's a smaller waveform. Let's go ahead and play a little up on the neck, see if that makes any difference, and then we'll add some dirt. Okay, sounds good, clean. Let's hit the Nauticlon. that's our Stratocaster with the Nauticlon. Sounds really great. I think that those speakers are exactly as I described earlier. They're clean and they provide a really nice attack, and they don't have any garbage in the signal. So let's hear the humbucker guitar clean and dirty and see what we got there, and then let's call it a day. All right, we've got the Flying V, and it sounds like this. Interesting. Way more breakup. This is the clean. I'm just in channel 2 here. I don't have any Rogue pedals pressed, so. This is if you split the coil, which I just pull up. It does clean up the signal a bit. Humbucker definitely wants to drive this amp a little more with these speakers, so that's interesting. So it's pretty close to breakup as is with these speakers. Let's hit the Nauticlon and get really dirty. Respectable sounding. I'm not sure if it's an upgrade from the V30 speakers that were in here. Like I said, they were spec'd for this cabinet, and they were given kind of a tonal curve to match the cabinet. Again, this is 2005 or 6 when this was being designed, so take that with whatever grain of salt you need to based on the design techniques of the day. But it is made in England. It's filled with Celestions that are made in England, so it's a very formidable cab. Solid birch. Really, really nice cabinet. All right, before we get out of here, I did want to hear an amp with a bit more treble, so I plugged in the 5150, and now we're in a much more rockin' amp. This is 120 watts of PV tube-driven power. So this is the 5150 in the clean channel first. Way more headroom, and I actually had to turn down the mic gain in order to not peak the system because just the clean channel on the 5150 with its current settings was peaking the microphone. So I backed them off to match the sound, but it is much, much louder and much brighter. But who cares about the 5150 clean channel? Let's hear the dirt. Here is the lead channel on the 5150. Definitely seems to be a bit more punishing. So that's kind of the difference between this Marshall Plexi 1987X. It's a very British sounding amplifier, a lot darker. I think that that could be chased out with a little more messing with the knobs. But I do like having a darker amp and a lighter amp for various purposes. I also have the orange Rocker 30, which sits right in the middle, and each one serves its purpose. So that's all I wanted to do in this video. I wanted to take apart this cabinet and replace all 4 speakers, which we did. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to replace 2 of those speakers with the EVM-12Ls, but we did get 2 of them in there, and hopefully this gives you kind of a realistic sound example with dynamic microphones right on the cone of either speaker. When it's all said and done, I'm going to just swap these Celestion V30s right back. I don't think that it's enough of an upgrade to consume those vintage speakers in there. So I'm gonna repurpose those for something else and return the V30s back to this cabinet. So that's what's going on. Let me know if you have any questions or experience with this cab, the MF280, the Mode 4 series from Marshall, or if you have experience with the amplifier or this Plexi 1987X and you want to hear some different sounds, just let me know. I'd love to hear it, and I will be as responsive as I can. As always, like and subscribe if you like this type of content. That always helps out, and hopefully I will see you on the next one.